The boardroom fell silent as Victoria Harlow's manicured finger pointed toward the door. "You're fired, Mr. Collins." The single father of two gathered his belongings, dignity intact despite the public humiliation. What Victoria didn't know was that in exactly 47 minutes, her company would face its greatest crisis, and the man she just dismissed held the only solution. If you've ever wondered about the true cost of pride in business, or how life has a way of humbling even the most powerful among us, stay with me. This story might just change how you view success, second chances, and the unexpected heroes in our lives. Like and subscribe if you believe in karma and redemption. You won't want to miss what happens next. James Collins walked out of Harlow Innovations' gleaming headquarters, the cardboard box containing 5 years of his professional life feeling impossibly heavy in his arms. The spring rain soaked through his shirt as he stood in the parking lot, his car keys trembling in his hand. His mind wasn't on the mortgage payment due next week or how he'd explain this to his children. Instead, a strange sense of relief washed over him. The crushing pressure of working under Victoria Harlow had finally lifted. Victoria watched from her corner office as James's figure disappeared into the rain. She allowed herself a moment of satisfaction before returning to the quarterly reports. At 38, she had built Harlow Innovations from nothing into a tech empire valued at over $2 billion. The company's revolutionary security software protected government agencies and Fortune 500 companies alike. Victoria didn't get where she was by being sentimental. James Collins, despite his brilliance, had become a liability with his constant requests for flexible hours and work-from-home days. His children's needs were not her problem. "The Anderson contract is ready for your signature," her assistant announced, placing a thick folder on her desk. Victoria nodded, barely looking up. The Anderson deal represented the largest government contract in the company's history, a security system for a classified defense project. Everything had to be perfect. Across town, James pulled into the driveway of his modest suburban home. Emma, his 12-year-old daughter, was waiting at the window. She rushed outside, her face falling when she saw the box in his arms. "Dad? Why are you home so early?" James forced a smile. "Change of plans, sweetheart." "Where's your brother?" "Napping. His fever broke." 8-year-old Ethan had been battling leukemia for the past year. The treatments were working, but the medical bills had nearly bankrupted James, even with insurance. Inside, James set the box down and checked on his sleeping son. Ethan's face was peaceful for once, free from the pain that had become his constant companion. James kissed his forehead and quietly closed the door. His phone buzzed with a text from his former colleague, Marcus. "Heard what happened. Victoria's a fool. Call me when you can." James ignored it. He needed time to process, to figure out his next move. He had enough savings to last 3 months if they were careful. After that, he couldn't bear to think about it. Back at Harlow Innovations, Victoria was in the middle of a conference call when her screen suddenly went black. Then every computer in the building followed suit. Confused voices echoed through the halls as employees discovered their systems unresponsive. "What the hell is happening?" Victoria demanded, storming into the IT department where technicians frantically worked at their stations. "We're under attack," the head of cybersecurity explained, his face ashen. "The most sophisticated breach I've ever seen. They've bypassed every security protocol." "That's impossible," Victoria snapped. "Our system is impenetrable." "Not anymore. They're extracting data from the secure servers, including the Anderson project specifications." Victoria felt the blood drain from her face. If those specifications leaked, not only would the contract be lost, but the company could face criminal charges for failing to protect classified information. Years of work, her entire empire, could collapse in minutes. "Stop it," she ordered. "We can't," the technician admitted. "The attack is using a vulnerability we've never seen before." Victoria's mind raced. There was only one person who knew the system well enough to possibly counter this. The same person she'd humiliated and fired just an hour ago. "Get me James Collins," she said through gritted teeth. James was sitting at his kitchen table, updating his resume, when his phone rang. Seeing the Harlow Innovations number, he almost didn't answer. But curiosity got the better of him. "Mr. Collins," Victoria's voice was tight, controlled. "We have a situation that requires your expertise." James listened as she explained the breach, a part of him savoring her desperation. But another part, the part that had dedicated 5 years to building that security system, was already analyzing the problem. "Please," Victoria said, the word clearly foreign to her tongue. "The company is at risk." "I'm sorry to hear that," James replied evenly. "But I'm no longer an employee of Harlow Innovations. I'll double your previous salary. Triple it. It's not about money, Ms. Harlow." "Then what do you want?" James looked at Emma, who was helping Ethan with a puzzle at the coffee table. "I want flexible hours to care for my children. I want to work from home when my son has treatments. I want respect for the work I do and the life I lead outside the office." The silence stretched so long that James thought she'd hung up. "Fine," Victoria finally said. "Whatever you need. Just help us." James arrived at the office 30 minutes later, Ethan and Emma in tow. He had no choice, their babysitter was unavailable on such short notice. Victoria's eyes widened at the sight of the children but said nothing as she led them to the conference room. "You can set up here," she said stiffly. "The kids can stay as long as they're quiet." James nodded, already focused on the laptop before him. His fingers flew across the keyboard as he dove into the system's architecture. The attack was indeed sophisticated, a zero-day exploit targeting a vulnerability in their latest update. But there was something familiar about the code pattern. Hours passed as James worked, occasionally pausing to check on Ethan or answer Emma's whispered questions. Victoria paced the room, watching the family with a mixture of impatience and curiosity. "Your son," she said during a rare moment when James looked up. "He's sick." James nodded. "Leukemia. He's responding well to treatment, but it's a long road." Victoria's expression softened almost imperceptibly. "That's why you needed the flexible schedule." "One of the reasons," James confirmed, returning to his work. By midnight, James had identified the source of the attack and created a countermeasure. As the system gradually came back online, he ran diagnostics to assess the damage. "They got some data," he reported, "but not the Anderson specifications. Those are secure." The relief in the room was palpable. Victoria dismissed the exhausted staff, but James continued working, strengthening firewalls and closing vulnerabilities. "You should take your children home," Victoria said, noticing Ethan asleep on the conference room couch and Emma nodding off in a chair. "Almost done," James murmured. "Just need to finish this security patch." Victoria studied him for a moment, then looked at his sleeping children. Something shifted in her understanding of the man she'd so casually discarded that morning. "I made a mistake," she said quietly. James looked up, surprised by the admission. "Not just about firing you," Victoria continued. "About how I've been running this company. Efficiency at all costs. No exceptions for personal circumstances." She gestured toward Ethan. "Some things are more important than quarterly reports." James saved his work and closed the laptop. "We all have our priorities." "Yes," Victoria agreed. "And mine have been wrong." She hesitated. "The offer stands, triple your previous salary, flexible hours, work from home when needed. But I'd like to add something else." "What's that?" "A new position. Chief Security Officer, reporting directly to me. And..." She took a deep breath, "a company-wide policy review on work-life balance. I'd like your input on that." James studied her face, looking for signs of insincerity. Finding none, he nodded slowly. "I'll consider it. But right now, I need to get my kids home." As James gathered his sleeping son in his arms, Victoria asked, "How did you know how to stop the attack so quickly?" James smiled tiredly. "Because I designed the security system with a backdoor, a way to bypass everything in case of emergency. Only 2 people knew about it, me and Marcus in development. The attack used that backdoor, which means it was an inside job." Victoria's eyes widened. "Marcus? Probably. He was passed over for promotion 3 times. Check his communications with your competitors." Victoria watched as James guided his sleepy daughter toward the elevator, Ethan still cradled against his chest. The image stayed with her long after they'd gone, a man who prioritized both his family and his work, refusing to sacrifice either. The next morning, Victoria called an emergency board meeting. By afternoon, Marcus had been escorted from the building by security, evidence of his corporate espionage secured. By evening, Victoria had drafted a new company policy on flexible work arrangements and family leave. When James arrived the following Monday, having accepted the CSO position after careful consideration, he found Victoria in the newly designated family room adjacent to her office, a space created for employees' children during emergencies or school holidays. "My first act as CEO after the crisis," she explained, looking almost embarrassed. "I realized we had 5,000 square feet of underutilized space that could make life easier for our people." James nodded approvingly. "It's a start." Over the following months, Harlow Innovations transformed. The flexible work policy increased productivity rather than hindering it. Employee retention improved dramatically. The Anderson contract was successfully fulfilled, leading to additional government partnerships. Victoria found herself spending more time with James and his children. She attended Ethan's final chemotherapy treatment, bringing a superhero cape she'd had custom-made for the occasion. She helped Emma with a science project. Somewhere along the way, the Ice Queen CEO discovered parts of herself she'd buried beneath ambition and drive. 1 year after the day she'd fired him, Victoria and James sat in the same boardroom, now as equals reviewing quarterly projections. "We've increased profits by 22% while decreasing turnover by 40%, James noted. "The board must be pleased." "They are," Victoria confirmed. "But more importantly, I am." She closed the folder before her. "I never thanked you properly. For saving the company. It was in my best interest too. Not just that. For showing me what I was missing. For proving that compassion and success aren't mutually exclusive." James smiled. "Sometimes we need to lose something to understand its value." Victoria nodded, thinking of how close she'd come to losing everything because of her rigid thinking. The firing turned out to be the best thing for both of us, didn't it? "Second chances usually are," James agreed. "For companies and people alike." As they left the boardroom, they passed the family room where Ethan, now in remission, was playing chess with the CFO's daughter while waiting for his father to finish work. Victoria paused to watch them, marveling at how a single decision, a moment of crisis, had changed not just her company but her understanding of what truly mattered. The man she'd once dismissed as a liability had become the company's greatest asset, not just for his technical skills, but for the humanity he'd brought back into her corporate world. In saving her company, James Collins had also saved something in Victoria that she hadn't even known was lost. Sometimes the people we push away are exactly the ones we need the most. And sometimes, it takes losing everything to find what truly matters. If this story touched your heart, please like and subscribe for more tales of redemption, second chances, and the unexpected ways our lives intertwine. Remember that kindness and understanding in the workplace aren't just nice ideals, they're good business. And the people we sometimes undervalue may be the very ones who save us in the end.